This story is called PI Exposes Cheating Life. I am a 50-year-old businessman that owns and operates a retail business in my hometown. Except for the 4 years in the U.S. Marines, I have never left this area. My last year in the Marine Corps, I met and married Paula. After my discharge, Paula moved with me back to my hometown. I then started working for the man that taught me this business, and about 15 years later, sold it to me. The first few years, Paula was also working at a local bank as a bank teller. Even though I had 2 large loans, both of us did okay. We were paying for our home, and I alone was paying off the loan I used to buy the business. During the years, Paula and I were married. She gave us 2 beautiful children. I really came to love Paula. She was a fantastic cook, and even though she worked 40 hours a week, always kept the house clean, and my dinner was always on the table. After my daughter was about 10 years old, Paula started having some medical issues and had to have a hysterectomy. For some reason, this caused Paula to go into a deep depression. As I look back at that time, I can see Paula was never the same after that. Paula also started to get angry a lot. She would jump on my son and daughter for nothing. I was at work when my son, then 13, called me. He stopped by a friend's house for about 30 minutes one day, and his sister got worried about him. So, she called her mother, then Paula jumped on my son later, after she got home from the bank. I am an avid outdoorsman. I love to hunt and fish. I also love to flick tin, looking for small things like lizards and snakes. One day, I got a bit careless, and a large copperhead was about a foot from where my hand was, and he bit me on my finger. I was close to my car, and the man that was with me drove me to the hospital. It was determined that I received either a dry bite, or a very small dose of venom was injected. I was given some medication and told to watch my finger for swelling. This happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was not able to locate Paula. When I told her what happened later, she exploded. I was just numb, and decided to drive about 15 miles to the interstate, where some nice hotels were, and checked in. The next day, I checked out and went directly to work. When I got there, my son called, and said Paula had left just after I did, and had not come back home. He and my daughter were still at home. Because it was a Monday, my kids did not have the money to pay for their meal cards at school. I went directly home, got both my kids, and took care of the money. By this time, I was no longer numb, I was pissed. I drove to the bank and discovered Paula was not at work. I had to go back to my business, because it was Monday, and there were some things that had to be done my 2 employees could not do. So, I went out about my day, and after a while, pushed Paula out of my mind. I closed my business and headed home. I did not see Paula's car in the driveway, but the kids were at home. Then finally at about 8 p.m., Paula drove up. She spoke to the kids and headed toward our home office, and I just slammed the door in her face. To her credit, Paula knew I was not in a good state of mind. I had already fed the kids and myself, so Paula made a sandwich and went to our bedroom. I slept in the guest bedroom, and that next morning, I noticed Paula was giving me wide space. Never once did she say I am sorry. My kids to this day tell me she did not apologize to them either. Then one day, about a week later, Paula suggested we separate and wanted me to move out. I told her I was not moving out, and that if anyone moved, it would be her. That was the day I drove into Richmond, Virginia, and found the family law attorney. She listened to my story and gave me some advice. First was to record everything while you are alone with her. Then speak to the kids and make sure they are not being traumatized. She also told me that she had a high suspicion Paula was cheating on me. Then she said she had a private investigator who was a retired federal agent and was very good at his job. She told me what her firm's billing rates were, and I was okay with it. Then she told me the private investigator will call me at my workplace, and he is going to need some information about my wife. I met with him and had the information the attorney said he would need. By this time, Paula did start staying with a friend from work, but made it clear that it was her house and that she was going to hire an attorney to get me out of it. So, for the next 3 weeks, I woke up every morning, wondering if that night would be my last night in the house. I got up, fed my kids and got them off to school. Then one day, my attorney called me and said the private investigator had found what we needed, and she wanted me to come by her office. So, we made an appointment for 2 days later. As luck would have it, I was served divorce papers. So, I took the papers to the attorney and she laughed a bit and said, "My wife has a huge surprise coming. I see the photos the private investigator took of Paula with her AP. To this day, I have no idea what he did for a living or where he worked. I just knew his name was Kurt. There were photos of him and Paula walking into hotels. Somehow, this private investigator even got a copy of the hotel registration where they registered as a married couple. To this day, I have no idea how they pulled that one off because most hotels I know demand ID from all guests. So, Paula's attorney asked for and got an emergency hearing to have me forcefully removed from the house. This was before Paula or the attorney knew what my attorney had. That private investigator had gone to the kids' school and spoke to their teachers as well as the kids themselves. My attorney also had all the photos too. My attorney asked Paula's attorney for a short private chat about 15 minutes before our case was called. When they walked out of that room, Paula's attorney did not look happy and she told Paula they needed to talk as soon as possible because she did not want to go into court today. After they spoke, all the smirk was gone from Paula's face. She went from boss to beggar in a matter of a minute, asked me for a chance to get back together. The attorney said she wanted to stop the case from going forward, but my attorney said, no, she would object to any motions before the court to do it. She assured the other attorney that a divorce was happening. So, the hearing came and Paula's attorney said a resolution had been worked out and the judge said, okay, talk to me about this resolution. I was sitting about 2 feet from my attorney and could hear her very lightly humming the funeral march as her hand covered her mouth. Paula's attorney said that new information has come in that renders the request moot. Here is what my attorney said happened. This judge was known as a judge that will hang a man by his privates and divorces. This judge would have loved to force me out of my home. So, the judge wanted to know what that information was and if they were going to ask for a dismissal of the case. As Paula's attorney was talking to her, my attorney stood up and said several sentences in Latin and the judge said, okay, and told both of us that his clerk will let the attorneys know when the final hearing will be. When I got home, Paula was already there. She was on her knees begging me to forgive her and let's go to marriage counseling for the sake of the kids. I refused, also told her to get the hell out of my house, that I would burn it to the ground before her cheating ass would ever stay there again. We later learned the date of the hearing. However, my attorney had to file for and was granted an order for Paula to stay out of my home and business. One thing about my attorney, she knows her stuff and does due diligence when she asks for a court order. This judge granted it because Paula ignored the summons to court. Paula during the hearing was only asking for a chance to be a wife again. She stated she had broken it off with her AP and just wanted to have her family back again. When the time came for my attorney to present her case, the first person called was the private investigator. She asked him where he was the night before this hearing. He said, observing my wife with the same man she had been seeing. This private investigator, when he takes a photo, always lays the day's newspaper in the photo. He had a photo of them kissing with the Richmond paper from the day before in clear sight. The judge told Paula he was granting the divorce on grounds of her adultery and was awarding her nothing. The kids had already told the judge who they wanted to live with. I had to settle with Paula for her part of the house. I also got a few bucks for child support that I honestly just gave to the kids. My world today is my business and my kids. I do have a wonderful girlfriend. Paula finally moved back to her hometown in California. I allowed the kids to fly out there to see her during the summer and on either Christmas or Thanksgiving. Today they are grown. I honestly don't know what happened to Paula that made her blow up our marriage. Last year, my daughter did one of those DNA things and through it determined she was in fact mine. My kids live in the same hometown I have lived in all my life. I asked both if they held any hostility toward me for not taking their mom back. My son said he did at first, but now knows I did what was best for all three of us. My wife, Ferdy, comes from a humble background. Her father is an alcoholic, so her mother worked hard all her life to make ends meet. I, Ferdy, am from a more privileged background. All in family are PhDs. We were different, but when we met in 19, I was in love. She was my first serious relationship. For the first 6 years, we had a long-distance relationship as I was studying abroad. I moved back and we moved in together. For years later, we tied the knot. After about 1 year of marriage, I found out she had been having an affair with her boss at a major marketing firm with a senior partner. I also found out that before the marriage, she had a one-night stand with someone and she also met him for some dates. She also maybe got pregnant and asked this one-night stand for some cash. She says she had an affair with her boss because she enjoyed the perks and was getting on the fast track for promotion. He gave her expensive gifts, attention, and time. This started around our wedding, where the pressure of our wedding costs was weighing on her as I was basically taking care of it all. She says she tried to end things, but he threatened to fire her and also beat her. Then said he would commit suicide. The physical violence was frequent with her boss. Her boss came to our home often and comes to many of our social engagements. She always told me that her boss doesn't have friends and she was just getting some brownie points. I bought this. I am such a fool. I even suggested to her to go with her boss to a business meeting outside the city because he is a terrible driver and could do with some company. What's crazy about this is that I am actually way richer than her boss. I have given her every single ounce of freedom. She can take money. No questions asked. She is not enjoying work. She can work at our business. Although I always encouraged her to be independent. I had actually helped her get this job. I paid for her college and basically all her expenses since the start. Best part, I encouraged her to go and talk to management as it would help her. She went and said hi to the sky because of that. She meant everything to me. She says she was happy in our marriage. I certainly was. My faith in her was so enormous that I ignored every sign. Our sex life was great. She says she never did this for sex. I have lost my future. I worked my ass off to grow our business after the COVID impact, and here she was accepting luxury gifts that I consider pocket change. Although I'm a simple man, I rarely spend on myself and I spend time on clean water projects in Africa, but it's true. I didn't buy things for her mostly because I thought she can buy whatever she wants with her card. And also because I was working all the time. Also her fling mentioned above from a prior marriage. She texted him recently and had been having many flirtatious messages. She used to cook for her boss. She messaged him things like she wanted to be with him at night. And she did message him once or twice expressing concerns that she thought he was leaving her. After D-Day, our worlds have collapsed. She has quit her job and says she has become suicidal. She swears she tried to get out, but couldn't. And she hates this guy. She is asking for forgiveness. If I can take her back, I can't trust her or maybe anyone ever again. Update 1 D-Day. She came home after one of her office parties. She was completely drunk at 3 in the morning. She started mumbling. She wanted kids. I asked her who dropped her off. It was her boss. Something snapped in me and checked her phone, found out her workplace. This company she works for is awful. I just Googled and found out that in 2018, they laid off all senior management due to workplace harassment. And then someone in 2022 filed a case saying no action on her complaint. AP, he is in his mid-50s and fat, quite an ugly dude. Honestly, she has brought him to our house many times. She has taken me to his house many times. She has introduced him to all our friends. She always said it was because he is lonely and doesn't have friends. The extent of his visits were so much that even when I thought something was fishy, I would think who could be that stupid. My father just told me after D-Day that he had told my mother that I was probably approving of this open marriage. He just couldn't believe it that I didn't suspect anything. Her response after D-Day: accepted divorce, accepted to file lawsuit for workplace harassment. Quit her job, though she needs money and is suicidal to a point that her family doesn't even let her use the bathroom with the door closed. She is remorseful and her family is too. She apologizes to me on an hourly basis, asks for forgiveness and a chance to prove she can change. She is asking me what she can do to make up for this. However, due to the magnitude of her betrayal, I am not considering any form of reconciliation, but it's hard on me to stay firm. Clues during the 1-year long affair. I have to admit she has asked for psychiatric help and has told me she has severe depression. I never understood the gravity of this and procrastinated on it. She has Googled on topics of how to end things. She has asked me multiple times to help her find a job. Again, I never understood the severity, so she definitely was going through something, but at the same time, she has sent texts to him like she is missing him. It's not that she had an escape in her AP. She was having a full-blown toxic relationship parallel to ours. Parallel lives. If you read her messages to him and then to me, you will see night and day with him. It's like a stupid teenager fighting and passionate and crazy with me. It's like calm, happy, and a loving life. I am telling you, we had a happy marriage. This is what makes this so devastating. At one point, she is messaging him frantically to come pick her up. And she is messaging me at the same time, reminding me of some chores and that we have still not formally applied for a marriage license. In my opinion, and I am not a therapist, he just needs to cut his losses. If this man doesn't have any children with this woman, he needs to get out and fast. What additional signs do you need that this woman is a complete disaster? She had a one-night stand and continued to go out with her one-night stand and possibly gotten pregnant. And now she is messing around with her boss. Man, come on. Women like this are a complete waste of time and your resources.